If you've ever tried replacing your windows and thought to yourself, why is this so complicated? You're not alone. We're going to walk you through 3 different kinds of installations. Whether it's brick to brick, brand new construction, or a basement window, each type comes with its own surprises. Nasty! Today I'm going to walk you through all 3, step by step, so you don't have to waste your time, your money, or end up with leaks. Now, brick to brick windows have their own unique challenges because when you're ordering your windows, you're going to be ordering it based on the outside dimension. Just remember, whenever you're ordering a window, you're either hiring somebody to take the measurements for you, or if you're measuring yourself, you actually have to specify brick to brick measurements, left to right, and then top to bottom. And then whatever happens on the inside will be the balance of that, and it's relatively industry standard because outside windows, brick to brick, come with what they call a brick mold. When you're dealing with brick to brick, especially in older houses, it's one of 2 things. It's an original window, or like in this case, it's the original frame with another window built to sit inside that existing frame, and then they cap it up with a bunch of aluminum. So depending on your scenario, you're going to want to get rid of all your capping first. And to do that, we just score all of the silicone and release the capping. And understanding how they make the window is paramount to success here, because if you know how the windows are made and then how the capping is done, going backwards is really easy. You can see the capping is very flexible. So when they put the caulking on, there's no backing there. They do very gentle. And part of that problem with the capping is if there's no pressure, it's hard to get a waterproof joint. Across the bottom. Whew. You're going to want to find out, do both of your windows move or is one fixed? In our case, this one is released quite easily. Matt's going to come over here and take this one out for us. There's just a switch at the top, pulls down on the pins, and then it just folds forward. Some of the different models you're going to have to lift into the sash and pull the bottom out, but this particular model comes out that way. Oh, because we're not saving any of the existing framing, we're just going to expose what's got going on underneath here. What they do with the flashing is they'll have it bent on an angle, and they put about 1/4 of an inch into the gap right here that comes in this window. That's where the metal goes in, 1/4 inch. So when they're doing their flashing, they'll measure 1/4 inch and then down. In this case, what they did is they went 2.5 out and then straight down. So there's this huge void, and that's not a problem. It just comes down to having something there that they can put that sealant on to create a water diversion system. You can see that sealant has a really good stretchability factor. That's not really the weak spot in the installation. The only challenge you run into here with an installation problem, did they get a good bond? Here's the old window, and it had a vinyl casing, and it's wood. And then they installed this new window in the old space with shims and a lot of foam. So because this panel is fixed, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Sawzall, so we're going to cut right down to the brick. When you're cutting something like this, since I'm going to be grabbing it and pulling it out, I'm going to cut on a bit of an angle so I'm not creating a pinch point, okay? Am I through? Next thing you want to know is when they install a window, generally speaking, they install by screwing the top and the bottom corners. This window, the trims are designed to pop off, and then that reveals the screw heads. Now these screws are not going all the way through into the concrete. They're just attaching this window into the wood that's hiding behind the vinyl. We're also going to check in the middle area to see if there's any there. Nope. And Matt's going to grab the other side there for me, and we just tear at it. Shouldn't be any trouble to separate the new vinyl, new from the old existing wooden frame. That goes straight to the bin. That's just a shim block, and my system when I'm doing this is always have the garbage can inside the house. You can throw all your small stuff in there while you're working. Things like the trims. Oh, here we go. I'm thinking this is made of cedar, Matt. Yummy. So we have a brick on top of our block foundation wall. A lot of houses that got brick sills, they're just level. And then the caulking is sitting in water every time it rains for hours and hours until it dries up. This has got a nice slope, so it drains really well, which is good. We've got a wood 2x4 sitting on the foundation block, and then they've backfilled it with concrete, just a mortar block. This is on top of the foundation wall. What we did is we did a rigid foam and then new framing. So what our goal here today is not just replace the window, but try to get a new thermal break tied across here with this rigid foam to the outside. That way we get a nice new facade, but we also get a nice thermal break. We don't have condensation, we don't get rot. So all of that's put together as part of our system. For now, we'll get this all cleaned up. So much caulking. Now this board should be attached with either a couple of nails or a couple of screws into the concrete. And the old window, you can see, had a nailing flange. So they obviously put the windows on and then they did the brickwork afterwards. So when you're doing a replacement, you got to remember, this flange also was up here and it's against the outside of the house so that water that gets in behind this brick would come down and hit the sill and go left and right. That's why a lot of people, when they're doing these windows, they say, leave the old frame because that vinyl is still doing water diversion. Now, let's take a look at what I'm looking at. Above this window is another window. There is no water getting in behind this brick. So I'm tearing it all out and starting over so I can get a clean, sexy look. The other thing about this building site specifically is that my soffit is traditional right now. It has holes in it so fresh air can get up. But because we spray foamed, we don't need fresh air in our attic. There is no attic. There's no more wind-driven rain gonna get in behind this brick. And that'll be the end of our moisture issues. So we're more than comfortable moving forward. If you don't have the same site conditions and you are concerned about moisture, consider leaving the old framing up top. And then make sure that the person you're buying your windows from takes this thickness into account. Oh wow, they even put screws into the mortar. So here's the original window. It even had a slope. Here's all the foam filling the gap. And they've got a plywood spacer in here. And on the inside, they've got this trim. So we remove this. Now we can get our Sawzall to cut right through this plywood. We'll cut through this assembly. That way we can just peel this window open and not break any glass. Remember, this isn't television. You don't want to break the glass. It makes for a very dangerous job site. Whoa, dude. Hey.
Did you cut yourself?
Yeah, it's not bleeding through yet. Must be that callus. This is why I don't wear gloves. Just remember that cutting through plywood can get really hot. So if it starts to smoke, let it cool down for a minute before you go all the way. Ooh, yeah, she got hot. Just peeling it off whatever foam is left. Now that was nice and easy. Now we throw this right to the bin. If you're trusting in the caulking to keep your house dry, you're gonna lose the battle. All the moisture that goes into this brick for the last 50 years, while it's drying, is transferring right into the wood and rotting out the corners. This is why I like physics over chemistry, but when you're doing brick to brick, you gotta trust the chemistry, and that can be a problem. Now we gotta deal with the preparation of the surface. You want the glass not where the brick is. You want it on their foundation wall area. And to do that, that means all of this caulking should go. We should be able to just peel it all right off. It really gets struck to the mortar more because the mortar is very coarse. 20 minutes just to clean the caulking off of all this old window. I should say, one of the things that you need to do before you replace the window, take it out of the packaging and double check all your measurements to make sure that it's going to fit in the hole before you cut the old one out. Or you're going to be the guy in the street with plywood over his window for 4 to 6 weeks while you're waiting for a new window order. Sound familiar? Trying to get rid of as much of this as I can because our new window is coming colored much, much darker. I don't want to have residues of white caulking on this brick. Caulking has a half-life. It does expire. So if you have an older house, guys, and you're just watching this out of curiosity, go around and redo your caulking. A little bit of water makes a whole lot of mess. It's been my experience that the sides come off a lot easier than the bottom. I don't know exactly why that is. Probably has a lot to do with UV rays and that sort of thing.
Slowly but surely.
There is a lot of caulking in here. Holy cow. I'm getting my butt kicked over here. If you want to save yourself a lot of time so you can turn this 1 hour job into 10 minutes, grab yourself a pair of pliers, squeeze it tight, almost to the point where you feel like you're ripping it in half. And you can turn a hard job into a simple one. If you have a better idea, hit up the comment section and let us all know. I don't replace windows every day of my life, you know. We all know the most important part of any job is the preparation. Consider changing a window like finishing work, because on the outside, you are finishing. And so, gonna grab my orbital sander at this point, slapping on 150 grit, and I'm going to take off that little bit of caulking line that's here. I don't wanna finish this job, put on my bead of caulking, and see a white line. We're gonna get rid of it. Any other stains that are here, great opportunity to start fresh. Now it's time to open this bad boy up and try the dry fit. Double check what's going on, take some measurements, and then we can do some rebuilding because we have to replace a wood surface here so we have something to screw our new window to. We don't want to rely exclusively on caulking and window foam. Remember, behind the brick mold, there's a huge cavity. So as long as you cut towards the back third, you can slice right through all of this packaging. You're not gonna damage anything. Now, the foam blocks are so that you can set it on the side without putting all the weight on the brick mold. Here, we'll unearth the window. Two things we want to do before we get started. I'm going to open the window, get rid of the screen. The screen is in the way during install and it's easily damaged. Go ahead and shove that in the hole there, bud. Let's see how she looks. Uh-oh. You're fine. So now what we want to do is try to push that back and then balance out the gap on the left and the right side. Now, I want the brick mold to be sitting on the brick. This is the most important joint, and the smaller that gap, the easier it is to get a good seal with your caulking. Now, the only thing left for us to do is balance on both sides, and then I got to go inside and take a look to determine what it is that we got to do to build this out now. You're on hold the window, don't move duty. Thanks, buddy. So let's talk about the bottom. The challenge with that is this masonry is so rough, it's actually in the way. So I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of either chiseling of the masonry or a little bit of carving of the foam, so then I can bring my foam right from the brick up to the edge of this wood. Okay? As long as my foam makes it to where the glass is, I have a nice thermal break. Matt, are we balanced on the gap out there?
No.
Snug it over that way like an 1/8 of an inch or something, right? If I'm inching 3/4 there, I'm inching 3/4 here. Yes. So now I know that if I add a 2x4 on each side, I'm going to have the framing that I'm going to use to screw it back in, because we're going to install it the same way we uninstalled it. And then the top is of no consequence. I do have a gap. That is easier solved with foam than anything else, all right? So no reason to build that down. So my wall is built pretty much flush with this masonry. So we're going to trim this back so it's not in the way. Okay, so over here, right here, this all has to be hammered down.
Someone give it to it. Someone give it to it.
Okay, okay. So we'll go flat against the outside of the house, and it's gonna go right to here. I've got Matt cutting me a new piece of 2x4. We're gonna laminate this up so our finished bottom comes all the way over to our drywall. Make sure I'm not being hung up on any of this brick. I only needed to come up to the glass, which is back here somewhere. But this extra foam is just in the way. Now, when you're doing this kind of rough finish carpentry, always cut a little bit shy. And because we're relying on expansion foam to solve all of our problems around here, we don't need to be perfect. Now, this is interior lumber, so it doesn't have to be treated or special or speak French or anything. It just has to be cut and stuck in. Okay, well, that's a really big 2x4.
Pressure treated.
I mean, holy cow, they're having fun as much as the next guy, but... And we're gonna get this out of the way and fill this gap right here. All right, so let's just remember, this is where our finish is, so basically to the brick. And then our window is about 4 inches wide from that point, but we're looking to put the screw around here. So I'm gonna put my frame in this area. We wanna pick up a box of Tapcons, 3/16 by 2 1/4, and some air protection. Right here on the front edge of our block, I'm looking for this. I don't want to hit the mortar joint. I want to be just above it. That part of a hollow block is solid concrete. Give myself a little bit of a gap so I can see what I'm doing. You can't do that with a Milwaukee, can you? Oh. Here we go. We got our thermal break. All of the areas where we're going to get drafts outside of after we put the window in, we're going to seal it up with foam all the way around. And then we're going to have like the most perfect window in the world, right? So Matt's going to bring the window in on an angle. Because it's on an angle, the interior jamb will be up in the air, and then he can compress this foam. I'm going to just help steer a little bit. You got it, yeah. For our screwing locations, it's going to freak you out the first time that happens. You're going to think you broke something, but you're fine. We'll pop that one, and then over here on this side, not every window is the same, but this particular manufacturer, if I put my thumb on it, and then I can pop that one out. Again, it sounds like it's breaking, but it's not. It's got a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a fin, and it's snapping in place. What that does is that opens up the channel here that we're going to screw to. So we're going to use a screw. The surface of the screw will not go past this edge, and that'll give us the lateral strength we need to hold that window in place and put a 1 degree tilt leaning out so that all the rain ends up draining out instead of sitting anywhere in the assembly. This is for water that gets past the screen to have a drain, and so that 1 degree tilt is all we need to maintain and keep everything nice and dry long term. Matt, I'm coming out, and then I'll kick your butt in here. Okay, here we go. That is further in than I want it to be. See, there's my old caulking line. Didn't all sand off. So I'm just gonna set my window to a point where when I'm done, I can't see any of that damage. I'm liking my spot. Go ahead. Nice and easy. All right. Okay, now those screws hold the window still until all your sealants finish curing. And then you could remove them and the window would function fine for 100 years. Before we put all the trims back on, Matt, make sure that the window is operating well. No issues, beautiful. Now you can snap all the trims back in and then snap in the other side. Now the next step before we go any further is we want to do the weather seal outside. So for that, we're gonna need caulking gun and caulking, preferably one that matches the color of the window. I'm gonna need it. Oh, I got a knife. We ordered all of our windows to match the color of the new siding that's going on the house. The companies don't make every color of siding that's out there. They just have a chart and they tell you which is the closest possible thing. And this color is really close. The only other thing I need is my backer rod. Now we want to have it as clean and dry as we can before we do this. Here's backer rod. There's a bunch of different manufacturers. And this is just foam. There's a 1-inch gap from the edge to the inside of this brick mold. And what this is going to do is save us a whole lot of aggravation because it gives us something to caulk up to. And now we're only going to be caulking on the surface. If you don't have anything in behind that gap, you could use 2 tubes of caulking on one window. Now we get to just glide over the surface with one motion, and we should get a much better result. This stuff comes in a bunch of different sizes. I'm using 1/2 inch on about a 3/8 to a 1/4 inch gap. I don't need it on the bottom. I don't need it on the top, but I need it on both sides. Now, caulking 101. For me, the best way to get a good result here is you start with the smallest gap that you have. And in this case, it looks like it's gonna be up top. Cut your tube on a 45 on something solid because otherwise this will just bend. And remember, this is a finished product here. We're just gonna start, instead of square on, I'm gonna go a little bit of an angle. Okay, now this product is thick. It's not like silicone. Okay, so you wanna just push it and then pull it at one speed because you're pulling it with the edge of the caulking tube. You don't wanna tool it. As long as you can see it in front of your tube, you're fine. If you stop squeezing, stop moving, is how you get a perfect caulking line on the outside of your house. If you start moving too fast, you're gonna end up pulling away from your material and not getting a good bond. Remember, we're basically trying to push it into the surface that we're sealing. Something that's gonna last you 50 years is worth being patient with. Okay? Now, you can put a wet finger on that, fix that joint, but the less you touch it, the better. Remember, people are only looking at this from the street. That's 100 feet away. With the backer rod there, it works really well. Now we pause at the brick. Put in a little extra material until you see it squeezing out. And then we go down, pause, some extra material. Let the material fill the gap, not the nozzle. Remember when we were taking it off, how well it was bonded to that mortar? Okay, you don't have to chase it into that gap. Just let the material push in. Oh, so busy talking, I didn't puncture the tube. Just about caused one heck of a problem. If you find this difficult and you're having issues, remember, you can always come back on it the next day and do another bead over top of the old one. If you have any air bubbles, trying to touch it right now or tool it or fix it while this is still drying and curing, it's going to make a mess. It bonds so well, as soon as you touch it with something, it'll pull away. Classic example. Look how it holds onto itself. Come back this way. There we go. So there's an air bubble. I'm going to try and not follow my own advice here. Oof, that wasn't bad. So that's basically our window install. Obviously, we still have to foam. We got a little gap here. We got a big gap across the top. And we want to build out our frame a little bit because we want to add our rigid foam here, seal up all of our gaps with our spray foam. And you're going to see all this in the other window. And we are going to finish with Curdy board. 1/2 inch goes into our drywall return. That way I can finish this with a bead of caulking here and cut this flush with my drywall, put on an outside corner bead, skim surface this side, do my corner, sand prime and paint, and I have a nice finished drywall return to the window without any casing and window trims. That is a great technique, saves a lot of time and energy. This also gives you a bit of a thermal break rating and helps kill all the drafts. It also doesn't condense and it also isn't drywall. So if you do get moisture buildup on your window in the wintertime, there's no material here to soak it up. There's no sponge effect. Now, any moisture that sits on this condensing on the window because you have an older house with humidity, that'll just get mitigated right through the rest of the house. And that is ultimately the secret. The drywall will transfer moisture back to the wood. This won't because this is waterproof. All right? This is how I'm doing my entire basement. Enough said about that. For new construction windows, I'm gonna recommend that you guys get an assistant, especially if you're dealing with big ones. It's nice to have someone inside when you have somebody at work on the outside. They do tend to fall out of the hole until you get them attached. So let's just jump inside. We'll drill our holes and mark our location, and then I'll show you how we're gonna prep this window to keep it waterproof forever. All right, there's my hole right here, guys. What we're gonna do is I'm just gonna stick my finger in it, identify the outside of the hole. And I'm just gonna use a chalk line to mark out all my Tyvek, because when you're installing a new window, the house wrap becomes an integrated part of the sealing of the system. It's not just garbage and in the way. We don't cut it out. We actually intentionally use it as a part of our solution. Now, we generally like to cut a little bit of a gap here off the top and then try to staple it to the ceiling. Beautiful. Now, we know that our window is gonna get cut basically to here. All right, and the system that I'm going to show you involves taking the house wrap, using the leftovers to wrap around to the inside, all right? It does not, however, involve using any with the house wrap on the bottom to be part of the waterproofing. So I'm just going to cut like this, and then about here, a few inches well inside. That all becomes garbage. We are also going to fold this down out of the way and fold these flaps back. Right there where you don't want it to be, eh? Maybe Matt threw a staple here and there. All right, that's plenty of staples. Yeah, it's just temporarily out of our way. That's all we're looking for there, bud. Here's our hole. And we want to have our chalk line right here and then right here on every one of those holes, okay? This is going to enable us to set our depth of our blade, the thickness of the OSB. There we go. And then we'll do the outside line. Snap away. Beautiful. Now we got to set the blade. Battery's out for this. The control arm is back here. What you want to do is get your guard out of the way. Okay, that is just a little bit less than ½ an inch. And you can see that that tooth is actually just a little bit more than ½ an inch. So that should do the job, except we had a little bit of buildup of the spray foam. So I'm going to go just a little bit more. Make sure I get it right the first time. Worst case scenario here, I'll cut too deep and I'll cut part of the 2x4 framing member. If I hold the saw this way, then all of the chips as it's cutting are going right in my face. I'm gonna use the mark on my table here. That's where the saw blade cuts. I'm gonna need my ladder. Uh-oh. All right. When working on a ladder, keep away from the edge. Don't move it once you set it in place. And only work on one sheet at a time and then reset so you're not leaning, reaching out. And welcome to my new bedroom. Now, one of the most important things that I should mention, make sure that your inside jamb and your brick mold, everything is going to fit into space. Because there's always that one time that the manufacturing is wrong, and then you go and open up your product and you can't stick it in the hole. Open up, slice down the middle, and reveal our window. All right, now, we actually completely messed up. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is the inside. So what we're gonna do is gonna get you to pivot out, move your block back where you are. When you're in a confined space like we are, we're on a scaffolding. We gotta kind of spin it around. We gotta get it out and over. So I'm thinking we should kind of like lift it vertical and like just rotate it this way instead of trying to spin it around. Roll it on my corner, watch the roof. All right. And then we're gonna go this way. Okay, and we're in. And now we gotta roll one more time.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Move.
Keep going.
There you go.
Keep going. And hold on, you need a block here. Go. Now we can roll it back towards you.
Okay.
Feel free to lean it away from the roof, bud.
Okay, now hop it your way.
Yep.
Onto your thing.
Yes. Ah, now we have to do the dry fit. Oh my God. All right, we'll just put the bottom in first. Carry that load. Woo. All right, so now we're dry fit and we are going to take this back out, set it on the ground, and then we're gonna go through all the waterproofing measures we're gonna entail here. if you're one of those guys and you want to do everything over the top, we're going to go over the top on this one, just so you have an idea of all the best technology that's on the market. And we're going to show you my way of doing this, because over the years, waterproofing a window has gone from just a piece of J-trim up against a solid piece of aluminum and silicone caulk. That's what they started with 50 years ago, okay? Now we have integrated molded flanges, it's unibody construction, we have house wraps, we have waterproof exterior building, but they still have never changed their mind about what happens when water gets in behind it. And they still want everybody to leave a gap on the bottom for water to escape. That's poppycock. If you're gonna waterproof a window, waterproof the whole window. I have a 7-foot window here, and if I don't waterproof and seal this up, I'm guaranteed to get water in here every time the wind is blowing when it rains. And in my area, that's a lot, okay? So we're gonna completely submarine waterproof this sucker. We're gonna show you how to do it for your house so that you don't get water in your home. All right, Matt, let's pop this out and waterproof this bad boy. Okay, here we go. Again, we have to maintain the integrity of our nailing flange, so we set it on the blocks. Now, a couple schools of thought. First of all, there's a reason we save this Tyvek, okay? It's so that it can be wrapped around here. The issue with this is any of these little staple holes, when the wind blows, the air gets in there, the air also comes around, and now you can't air seal. So then you have to cut it short and then tape it to the wood. That's just stupid. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it nice and tight to the whole of this, and we're gonna integrate this into our nailing flange later. It makes no sense to bring waterproofing around inside of a structure that's going to be waterproof itself. Okay, and this isn't even waterproofing, this is what we call weatherproofing. So we're not going to weatherproof this window, we're going to waterproof it. The bottom, nice and simple. We're going to leave this where it is. I got to clean all the dirt off of here, and then we're going to get our flex wrap to do our windowsill. This sill here is actually installed with a 1-degree slope outward. We actually built this wall ourselves because we've reframed this side of the house, changed the floor plan on this project. This product is now made for the current standard for new home construction, which is 2x6 wall framing. And it comes with 2 peel and stick. And the idea is this. This joint actually is supposed to be right here at the outside of your OSB. And then it extends into the end of the wall. We want to cut ours down a little bit. I have 2 options. I can cut it before I install it, or I can cut it after. I'm going to go with cutting it after because it's going to be a lot easier. What we're going to do is we're going to measure this. We're going to add a foot, another foot for the other side. And we're going to come down here, add another few more inches just for a good measure. I'm going to line my tape up, and I'm going to come along to my outside, and then I'm going to unravel the other direction. This will make it manageable. Edge on the OSB. Now we can peel the rest of the tape protection off. Push the tape down into the corner to create that round corner there. Now you've got a seal. Just remember, stuff has a mind of its own, and it has the ability to stretch, so when you're working with it, try to work in the direction of the grain. At this point, we're going to take our Tyvek and we're going to trim this back a little bit so that we're overlapping but not coming around the top. We want any water that's on here to be working its way out and out, and we want to trim the inside excess off as well. All right, so Matt just came up with this. He's like, hey, that doesn't stick to the OSB very well, but it sticks to itself really well. This is actually a compression-based adhesive. Adhesive to adhesive has a great bond, but to anything else, you really got to press it in, and that activates the glue. So when you roll this thing with our little carpentry roller, you'd be surprised how well it sticks after that. So give that a shot, and then you'll get an understanding. There's so many folds in that product that if you don't really flatten that out, you won't get a good bond. And it is good practice to make sure you roll both surfaces, because after the window's in, there's gonna be some expansion foam going in, and we don't wanna have it all loosey-goosey in there, right?
Right.
Now look at how well that holds on now. Now it's not blistering off again, is it? Now if you like, you can put your house wrap up, you can do the DuPont over the house wrap. It's really up to you. This is all extreme measures that we're engaging here now. I don't think a lot of this is necessary at all. The house wrap into the inside of that flange and call it a day. But I know a lot of you guys are watching the channel and you're like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I can do it more than right. I can go a little more extreme. And I'm like, yes, you can. Now, this is the point where we actually put the window into the hole. And we screwed in place, which is great. Okay, now just for a curiosity hold, I'm gonna just take out the level. I still would like to get a shim, a little bit of a gap underneath that I can foam. So you go ahead inside with Joe now.
Fingers on the glass.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
You taught me that rule.
I have rules that I don't follow, but I expect everybody else to. All right, ready?
Okay.
Okay, and then one under this vertical support.
Okay.
Okay, and then one for the other side just to make sure. Making contact?
Yep.
All right, so we're in good shape. So I'm just gonna put in screws here and on the other side. And again, I'm using an 1.25 inch exterior rated screw. I don't wanna ever see anybody out here with roofing nails again. Roofing nails work, yes, but this is painted trim. A, this is a lot faster, and B, I don't risk hammering that trim edge, right? I mean, look how pretty this is. That's gorgeous. Smoked timber, if you want to know the color. Now, at the bottom, again, screws on the flange. For all of our viewers who are fans of going overboard, if you want, before you put the window in, you can take your exterior sealant and you can run a bead over top of all of your holes. So you can just like fill it all in. And then when you set it in, you squish it in place. And that gets you an additional seal. I just think it's ridiculous. The amount of water that I'm expecting to penetrate my defenses here isn't going to satisfy the thirst of a cricket. Did I just say that? Satisfy the thirst of a cricket? This is so much faster than nails. Sure cut all the sawdust, didn't it? Okay, so what I'm doing here now is I've got it in the edge and I'm basically just creasing it so I know where to cut it back to. Another concept we can use is we can cut this back at the same height as the top of this trim, knowing that I got about 1 inch below, okay? This is the height out front, that's the depth in behind. Literally, just use the top edge of that window as my guide. Yes, it's painted, but no one's ever going to see on top of it if I scratch it a little bit. And then I have a surface that when I push back, it's easy for me to set the tape 1 inch lower, push it down in, and make contact with that metal. When it comes time to waterproof, you want to always start at the bottom and then work your way to the top. It's part of a good water diversion system. I could tape the flange, but there's no need. And it's not because I'm worried about water getting out. It's because this is all screwed nice and tight. Now, if I'm worried about wind-driven rain, I simply go like this. And I set my tape up past the screws and encapsulate all those fasteners in my fastening tape. For everybody who thinks I'm trapping water, by the time I'm done, you'll come to realize ain't no water getting in here. Yeah, that's all just a little bit too long for my liking. I gotta trim this back as well. There are a few other flashing tape methods on the market. One is you would cut your house wrap about 3 or 4 inches back. And then you would use your flashing tape like your Flextra. Start over here, go over the OSB, into the channel, and then turn the corner about 1/4 inch inside the channel. Now, maybe there's some climates where that might be necessary, maybe like in Seattle or something like that. But in Canada, we're on a 4-season climate. We get a couple of decent thunderstorms every year, and that is about it. So what I'm gonna do is rely on my tuck tape, which is rated for wet areas. And I'm gonna get that in behind, and I'm going to tape all of my weak spots. Doesn't matter how ugly it looks with the tape, guys. Make sure you cover every hole. Like that, that's the penetration. See something, tape something. All right, get the bloody ladder again. I am vertically challenged, I'm telling you right now. That's gonna be the death of one of us here, this is crazy. Now, I gotta come up here, use my thumb here and hook it in behind the trim. Reach down as low as I can go. And it's okay to do this in small sections. You can see my tape is almost 1 inch lower than the top here. That's making contact with the vinyl on the back side of that trim. This brick mold goes from here to here, that height, goes all the way back, and then up to about this high. So you just want to make sure that if water gets in there, it is diverted somewhere else, either off the side or over the front edge. But it should never rise up to a level where it does anything else but go over the side or over the front. And then bring it down, make solid contact with the back of that. There we go. I lost my tape.
You ready to catch it?
Yeah, sure.
Oh. Okay. I just gotta throw it forward a bit more.
Thank you very much. All right. This is going to give you a perfect demonstration. Remember, that inside corner is not a joint. It is monolithic from here, down, across, and back out again. There's nothing to seal up there. Is to get this in all the way to the back, and then bring in the top, and then we flatten this out. If you're concerned about that at all, throw on another layer. It's only tape. This stuff, yes, it's 10 or 12 bucks a roll depending where you live, but it's still a pretty affordable way to waterproof something. I just get to finish off across the top. Always fold the tape over so you can find your flap, okay? And then fold. You get our fingers right in there. Really careful, there's a bit of a sharp edge in there. Okay, there we are. Make sure there's nothing obstructing so it doesn't always just stay full. We are officially waterproof on the outside. Any other imperfections that you see while you're putting your siding on, just have a roll of blue tape with you at all times so you can find a staple or something. You can just pull your tape off and give it a quick shot. Run it flat. You can use this as your roller too to make everything nice and flat, okay? Now let's go seal up the inside. All right, so now we're spray foam time, guys. That's really what it is. Just gotta open up the back, make sure that this thing works. The goal is to try to get the foam towards where the glass is in this wall assembly, not all the way to the front. We don't wanna try to pull it off the wall. Push the tip in. Takes a little bit of experience to get used to how much of a bead you're pouring in, but the window and door stuff generally won't expand to the point where it causes you an issue. Right down to the bottom, into that corner. And then we're just gonna run around the rest of the window. There's just nothing there, eh? Ready for next time. Before we get into this, I wanted to just demonstrate, because this is a 1974 build. This is a very common installation that we see in the marketplace. So if you have an older home, this is the original vinyl wrapped wood window. So all four sides are wood, wrapped in vinyl. And what they did is they did an update and they added a smaller window inside of the existing frame. We don't want to ever do that, okay? Kind of like putting a plastic tub wall over your old moldy tile. That's what's going on here, and that's not acceptable. We're gonna cut this out, and we're gonna show you exactly what kind of damage is gonna be happening in your house, so you resist the temptation to try to save a few dollars by doing this installation and go back to the beginning. Putting window into window is not a 50-year installation, okay? Let's just cut this sucker out, and we'll uncover all of this for the folks at home. You know, at first thought, it's like, oh, well, they added some insulation foam, good for them, but you can't do a good job of installing the foam when you're working blind. There we go. That's great. New window was screwed in place. Here's the aluminum capping that was put over top of the old wooden vinyl capped, okay? And what it is, if you watch right here, this aluminum is bent and it's forced into this little gap right along the bottom here. And then after they install it, they put sealant on it. And the idea is that that's supposed to make the exterior waterproof, right? Well, take a look at what's inside this, and you tell me how waterproof this is. It looks more like a nesting ground for all kinds of spiders. When I'm installing a window, I like to do everything I can to avoid needing a sealant, because whatever sealant you use, it has a lifespan, and it's not as long as your window. What we've got here is the old window. They stuck the new window in place, and this extrusion here, these little air pockets, that's what gives it its thermal protection. It traps air. Let's just pull this vinyl wrap off first, and we'll see what kind of condition this place is in. If I have access to that there, we'll see how bad it is. I know it's gonna be bad, I just don't know how bad. Because of this flange is one piece, there's no sealant here. So this does work as a water diversion system. Problem is the water does get in behind. You can see how they're trying to rely on a sealant here to keep water from getting behind the flange? That doesn't work. Every time you trust a sealant, you're gonna be disappointed. That's a whole lot of shim, isn't it? Look at that. Now, the vinyl cladding starts right here. Look how filthy that is, right? Any wind-driven rain can also make it up from underneath. Obviously somebody tried to add some sort of sealant here, but maybe they didn't take the time to bend over and take a look at what they were doing. So any wind-driven rain was going into that all day long. Let's pop it out, see what kind of nasty mess we got. Oh, there we go. We got rotten wood. Now, I'm just really surprised that this one's actually this dry. Bottom line, guys, you can't build up against something expecting it to last 50 years if it's already starting the rotting process. Because rotten wood, first thing it does when it gets wet is it swells. And that swollen wood tears up the sealant and allows water to penetrate. The more water gets in there, the bigger the hole for the water to have access. So on and on and on, right? So, time to start over and put in a brand new window. What we want to do now is we want to take this out without breaking the glass. Every time I see it done on TV, they destroy the glass. Ah. There you go. Just want to be able to control this so you're not twisting the glass so it doesn't break. There we go. Now the rest is easy to remove. Here's the underside of that sill. And some sealant. Look at that stinky color. That's just moisture. That was a quality piece of wood though. I mean,
This one was actually the best framed window.
it's the best one of the whole
out
bunch.
of the whole house.
Knowing how something is built will give you a much better understanding when we come time to talk about how to measure and order. That's the brick. And this is a piece of strapping. It's just floating into the block. The thing about concrete nails is sometimes they hold well and sometimes they don't. And after that, we have a little bit of insulation squeezed in there. It's dirty like this because of air moving through there, because it's not sealed up very well. That's so efficient. It also means that you've got wind-driven rain getting in behind the frame. There we are. Like I said, it all depends if the nails are bonded well or not. Here we go. We're gonna get rid of all of this extra masonry product here. The only other thing we gotta deal with now is the lack of actual structure here. Let's explain that next as soon as I clean this mess up. Part of the problem with older houses is before there's building code, they cheated a little bit with their structure. Now, this particular house, it's not that terrible. There is a rim joist up here that extends the left and the right side about a foot and is laminated together. This mess here, I don't even know what it is, what they were trying to do, but it's not carrying any of the extra weight. That is a lot of floor joist package, right? Coming over here to be supported by itself. Over time, the weight of that load will sag and it'll put pressure on the window itself. And so what you'll see in some cases is the window gets really sticky and you can't open it properly, or it'll even crack on you because it takes up the load. The front of the house upstairs is even worse example. It's a 10-foot window and it's just glass, 3 window panes and vinyl, which means it's too long of a span because it's carrying on all the truss of the roof. All right, so this 2x4 here, it's not carrying any weight. So we're gonna, oh, wow, okay. Okay. See, we were talking about air movement, and look how dark this is. And then this is just plywood. Yeah, nailed onto the sill plate. Now it's time for us to build our sandwich for a header. Going to consist of a 2x6 pressure treated lumber, 2 pieces, and a 1/2-inch piece of rigid foam. So you get wood, foam, and then wood again. When that's in and we put our window in from the inside, we'll be able to spray foam, fill the gaps and make contact with that rigid, and that'll give us a thermal break. What I'm going to be using today, guys, is this monster, and it's big enough that I can put it through my material into my sill plate, drive the head nice and deep so that it's locked in. Once we get this installed, we'll put in some vertical supports and then trim out the bottom as well. So we'll have wood on all 4 sides. And Matt's going to help me out. The secret to finishing this is installing all of our new framing flush with the exterior facade. I'll show you what I mean. The old window was installed flush to the masonry, but you can tell that above us we actually have OSB on top of our frame, and we have 1/2-inch plywood strapping for nailing on our new siding. So what we want to do is bring this header flush with these elements instead of the masonry. That'll give us a proper nailing surface to put in our window with our new nailing flange. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, so we're gonna make sure we're flush, and then I'll drive the screw. The same over here. All right, and then one for the middle. Now we've got something here that'll help to transfer load to avoid the deflection that'll happen and put pressure on our glass down the road. Remember, I want this to be a 50-year window, not another 20-year window like the last one. Bottom sill. We'll just lay it right in here. Beautiful. So what we're going to use here, guys, is polyurethane. This is a situation where I don't have a physics option here, so we're going to use some chemistry. Polyurethane sealant, when it doesn't get exposed to UV, will last 50 years. I'm going to do both sides of this board, flip it over and set it on this masonry because it's a little uneven. I'm going to make a nice thick bead. I also want you to realize that this is a hollow block, right? I want to try to get a nice thick bead there. I'm not relying on this sealant only. Later on, in addition to this, we will seal the bottom of the window, another bead on the inside. Okay, so we're gonna roll this now, and lift it and set it. We're also going to use a mechanical fastener, drive a couple of tap cons in there, hold it in place. Now I've got that wood compressed into my sealant. That'll do a really nice job of sealing this up. I need a couple of vertical pieces. Now, we're gonna attach those with tap cons as well. Now, ready to unpack this window and stick it in. All right, here's the bottom. Now, this window comes with a nailing fin, so you wanna cut the packaging on the back third, okay? So you don't risk damaging that fin. There we are. Nice to have somebody give you a hand on this one. And now we'll just go set that in right away. Yeah, there we go, we're in. The way these windows are made, guys. This is the vinyl extrusion right here. This is the brick mold, and they take the pieces and they actually melt them together so that it becomes monolithic. It's one body. Our job is to make sure that when we install this, we order it with the brick mold and a nailing fin, and so now we have somewhere for our siding to finish into. So we don't have to add extra dray trims, not putting on drip edges, none of that other fancy stuff. It's more of a submarine and not an umbrella. We have a nice flush surface. I can actually screw everything in here. I'm gonna have Matt go inside, open up the window, and then we're gonna shim the bottom so that I can get a foam air seal all around this entire window, because we don't wanna have small gaps of wood that are just allowing air and moisture to work its way into the house.
These ones have really cool locks on them. You kind of just pull them out towards you. Window opens up, and then they have a sweet self-locking mechanism when you close it. You'll hear it click. The one thing I did notice though is you can't actually unlock it and then relock it. You gotta pop them both out. Pretty cool window.
Basically what you do is you take that shim right underneath the extrusion itself so that you're supporting the extrusion of the window. And that'll give us the gap that we're looking for so that we can get that foam in and get a nice seal. Right away I'm checking for level. This is not perfectly level. Is there a thicker shim in that bunch, or they all come at quarter? Snap one, take 3 inches off. Yeah, that's probably gonna be perfect. Let's try that one. Okay, let's try the level again. Oh yeah, Matt, that's perfect now. Can you shim the middle as well? That's good. Don't want to warp it. Now, the only thing left to do is check for square. How are we looking?
We're about 1/16 of an inch out on the bottom.
So what we're going to do here, guys, this is not like putting on siding where you would find a nail fin in a hole and you go in the middle, all right? We actually want to make really good contact here. Get that screw set so that it's not sliding left and right. So we're going to screw the outside of those gaps. Now, you'll see a lot of guys online put their flange on with nails, and they'll use a galvanized nail. Can you imagine? I'm swinging here, hit a nail, and take a corner off of that. I don't like the risk. This is gonna be visible. I prefer an exterior rated screw. That's what this is. This is 1.25" ACQ exterior rated black screw. And these come with a Robertson head. It's rated for exterior applications. The treatment and the types of wood actually affect regular construction screws and they rust out. Just buy a good screw. Get that as flush as you can, all right? Now, the secret for the side is I'll put one screw on the side here. I'm not gonna drive it too tight till I get the other side screwed in. Then I can work my way up from there, because I'm not gonna be driving the bottom of that window left and right and pulling it out of square. Double check that the window is still working good, beautiful. We're basically installed at this point, just need a couple more screws. And now we're gonna deal with our weatherproofing and waterproofing. And no, the video is not sponsored. I just happen to really like a practical company that paints their windows. A lot more affordable than buying a vinyl extrusion that comes colored. They'll make the window and then paint the window. I like that because it saves me a ton of money. Vinyl extrusion that comes colored is almost twice as much every single time. It's somewhere along that curve of value versus expense, right? You can spend 3, 5, 10 times as much money to get that extra 2 or 3% performance. It's not worth it. If you buy a window for $500, you get a window for $500. For $2,000, you don't get 4 times the efficiency. You're gonna save maybe $1 a year per window. I'm a little more practical than that. If you wanna get all the fancy bells and whistles and all the grills and everything else, be fine. This is affordable, it's 2-pane, it's got a great seal, it's got a good function, it's got a great look. So I'm gonna show you now how I like to seal my window. There are a lot of different products on the market. Online, you're gonna bump into a lot of builders who are doing windows, and they're gonna be doing new construction. In most cases, builders online are being sponsored by a company called Zipwall, and the wall's all green and it's a waterproofing membrane system. It's less than 10% of all the houses being built currently are using this product. This is more traditional, okay? OSB with a house wrap. So we're gonna show you how to do this because it's something that you can do yourself. Here's my next product. It's called DuPont Flex Wrap. This roll costs a couple $100, but I'm changing all the windows in my house. And I've got penetrations in my house. Now, watch what happens when you wanna make a corner. It's like an accordion, okay? This product turns corners. So in effect, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be able to come up the one side of the window, come across, and then all the way down the other side with one membrane, So there's no joints, there's no tape that can fail, no need for me to silicone in the corners. This gives me really superior waterproofing. So I just gotta measure and cut. It would be helpful if Matt was out here, actually. It'd be helpful if Matt was out here, actually. Hey! I kind of need your help for this, okay? Okay. So, I want to cover all my screws and get it in there as far as I can so that I'm coming down onto the masonry. All right, now. I'm going to do an overlap corner, and I'm going to stretch it around the corner. Okay. And then we'll do the same to the other side. And get right into the bottom. So I can cover over all of those screws nice and tight. Now, the concept here is really simple. We get our tie-back to come over top of this. So when water gets behind your siding, comes down the surface, over top of this channel, and then down the sides, all right, and then out, away from the building. And the way we finish this off is we're just going to install our tie-back. We got to tape up the damage to this corner. We can tape this, flex tape. Now I'm gonna leave everything long today because we're gonna have to come back when we put our siding on. We're gonna have to change our starter strip because we're using a different kind of siding. We're not doing vinyl on this project. All right, and we'll take care of all that later. Here's a little trick. This is a little carpenter roller. You can use this just to get a really good seal with that tape on the window. Give it that extra bit of defense against the wind-driven rain. Every time you see a hole, make sure you fix it. And remember, when we go to the siding, we'll have a roll on in our pocket. So as we're installing siding, we see any damage, we can tape it as we go. Now we're installed, now we're ready for siding. Perfect every time. All right, guys. Now here comes the one place that everybody seems to forget. I would say 50% of the windows I've ever seen in my life failed right here. They don't consider wind-driven rain enough of an issue that they're willing to get on their back to do a good job of sealing this up. This is a great time to have a 2x10 laying around, but I got nothing today, so we're just gonna go for a nice rock massage. All right. Ugh. Wow, what a hole. So here, from this nail fin to this concrete product here, we have to seal our pressure treated. Not because the pressure treated needs to be sealed, but because that gap needs to be sealed. In theory, it is sealed because we put that sealant on the wood before we pressed it down and screwed it in. But there's no such thing as overkill when it comes to waterproofing. Oh, this is really uncomfortable. Come on, baby. All right, I think I'm happy with this now. Now we're gonna take our poker stick, because there's a foil seal inside that tube. If you just start pressing on the gun and you haven't punctured that seal, it'll all come firing out the back end, okay? Make sure you get that seal. Now, this stuff is awesome for exterior, has great stretchability, and it's also in a very dark brown color, which is what I'm going for right now. Now I cut the tip a little aggressively, okay? That's a pretty good size hole. And the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna try to fill this and then tool it using our little paint stick that's free. Then we are going to pull the tape off and try to get a nice clean line. There's a couple of secret tricks here I'm gonna show you. And these rocks are so much fun. So what we're gonna do is intentionally fill lower onto that tape and fill this void so that we can remove the excess when we're done. Now, I grabbed the paint stick and we're gonna use our trusty secret weapon. I'm gonna get a little WD-40 on this stick and on the sealant itself. Because in theory, that does a pretty decent job, doesn't it? So we're gonna just smooth it all out. We'll clean off that lead edge. Oh, got it all over the gun. Well done, Jeffrey. Well, looks like I need another gun. That's gonna be right off. We'll remove our tape and have a nice clean line. Oh, there's a lot of goop down there. That's much better. Okay, now we got our sealant on there. Here I am looking like a hypocrite because I'm using sealants, but here's how this works. Water gets blown through, comes down here, gets in this trough, goes left and right, because we've covered all of the exits. Unless we get more than an inch of water, probably in like 20 minutes, this should be able to rechannel all of the water over the corner. Again, it's all unibody construction. There's no way to get in behind the metal. It'll just follow its natural course and run off, because there's nothing there to stop it, right? It gets to the bottom, and then it's just gonna fall out to the ground. Now, the reason we use all the sealant is because we still want to protect ourselves against wind-driven rain, which is an anomaly. But when it does happen, you want to protect yourself against it. Now, the last thing we have to do here to install this window is on the inside. We have to seal up all of those gaps with our spray foam. I'm going to show you a really cool tool and a couple more tricks. Basically, the way the gun works, guys, it's a simple trigger. Now, you thread your can in, removable cap, and then a thread. And when this gets under pressure, it opens up the valve, and then the contents fill up in the chamber. Right now, the chamber is in the closed position, and you close it by going like this. So when you open this trigger, it doesn't move. I like to have a little bit of control. There we go. Now you can see the tip. When you let go of the trigger, it seals it off. So the best way to handle this is to actually operate with some gun cleaner as well. And you can thread this into the nozzle as well, and you can clean the cartridges for long-term storage. For short-term storage, you can just leave the can on and you'll be absolutely fine. And you just store like this. This little foam gun here has a tab you break off, and you set this in here, and it becomes a spray tip. When you're done spraying, we can just go back to storage, all right? Now for us, I have the foam gun tips, and it just shoves right on the end. So now you can force foam in a really small area. Now, one thing we want to do is we want to seal our wood to our masonry all the way around. Across the bottom, the trigger is pressure sensitive. We're just firing in a little bead, so if there's a gap or a crack, the air isn't going to be rushing into the building. And now this wood here is up against the masonry with a mortar joint. Same thing here. We don't want to have even one piece of air leak. We want this to be nice and tight. So what we want to do is insulate where the glass is, pretty much the same depth. And I want to get the insulation pressed in deep to fill that gap around the same place where the glass is. There's a small gap. I could use that other tip, but you'll notice this is working all right. Same thing down here. Double check your work. Then we come across the top. By forcing this insulation in nice and deep by sticking the rod in, we'll actually make sure we make contact with that thermal break that goes all the way up to the rim joist. Remember, this is window and door. It doesn't expand as fast as like the big gap filler, for instance, but if you overfill, it will grow out and make a heck of a mess, all right? And we don't want that. Less is more. Let it expand and cure a little bit and come back for a second run. You can always put fresh foam on old dry foam. There's no problem with that. Just don't want you overfilling, and then you go to open your window and you'd be like, ugh, and then you're stuck right there. Remember, we're going for an air seal. The window itself has a rating of a R5 value-ish. So a little bit of foam gets you that. So it's not like we have to try to get R20 at that joint. We just want to air seal it and walk away, okay? When using a foam can, you got to hold it upside down, right? But how do you foam these gaps up here by the ceiling without going sideways and running the risk of all the gas coming out? Grab yourself a length of hose at the Home Depot in the plumbing department. It is the perfect size. Now you can hold the can upright and you just have to direct the hose. You all right? Okay. That didn't work. This is an air seal as well. All right. Boom. Set it into all of that goop. I'm going to measure up to the ceiling here. Just an adhesive strip more than anything else at this point. I know this is a meticulous process, but if you want a thermal break and an air seal, this is the way to do it. And we got to do the other side. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice here. The reason I'm suggesting two hands, the blade's crazy sharp. And when you use one hand, I've had occasions where the knife has actually flipped out of my hand, spun around, and then it actually just cuts right through the back of my finger. Absolutely mind-numbing pain. Now, the only other thing I have to do is I need to trim back a little bit of this foam when it finishes expanding. Then I can trim back the excess. Perfect every time. As you can see, we're in the middle of a major project right now. This is the 1974 home that we rebuilt, and now we're doing all the finishing. We're doing a two-tier deck out here using brand new technology so that our ledger board is raised off the wall to eliminate the moisture sandwich so we won't ever get rot again. And we're putting on a new composite siding. This is a lap siding that is a lot more practical, and it's a great DIY product. All these things are coming your way. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You do not want to miss out on all the action coming forward from this point on, because now we're moving into the finishing stages, and that's where the fun is.